welcome you warmly here, physically, finally, after all this time, to listen to our debate. My name is Sławek Górniak, as already introduced. I'm the senior expert working for ENISA. My connection with the subject dates since the beginning of the works on the first proposal of EIDAS, and I have with me today three distinguished colleagues, panelists. So Kai Rannenberg, Dariusz Kubylis, and Sebastian Eltos. I would like actually, before passing to the debate, I would like to ask all the panelists to introduce shortly themselves and to introduce, let's say, their connection to the subject of the panel, which is digital identity wallets. Let's start by Kai.
Okay, thanks a lot, and a big jikuya to the organizers of this event for inviting me. I think it's a very important topic, and I'm really honored that I've got this invitation to speak on this panel. So what is my relation to the topic? I'm a professor for mobile business and multilateral security for about 20 years at Goethe University in Frankfurt. And the oldest of you may remember that about 20 years ago, the idea of smartphones came up. That was actually before the iPhone was there. There were smartphones before the iPhone, and there was the idea that these devices could maybe be used as personal security assistants and for example, digital signatures, an idea that also came up about 20, 25 years ago. The career of the smartphone has developed slightly differently than what we hoped in those days, but that is my first relation to the whole topic. The other relation was that, of course, in those days already we thought we could have credentials on such a smartphone, and the credentials should be privacy-friendly and give users a choice. So some of you may remember the ABC for Trust project. That was a major European Union project, and to build architectures and integrate architectures that help users to choose which elements of credentials they would like to pass on. And those two combinations, I think, probably made the organizers invite me.
Kai also did not mention that he's a recognized personality in the area of privacy and in the standardization of privacy. Dariusz.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dariusz Kubylis, and I work in Center for IT Technologies in Poland. I'm a head of IT products department, and my connection with the subject is that I was lucky, and I'm still lucky, to work on a mobile application that it was, I think, the first prototype for mobile wallets, working prototype, mCitizen, as Minister Cieszyński mentioned. I was involved in it from the beginning, since 2017, firstly as its business analyst, and next for 4 years as its program manager. And from the recent year, I'm attending the EIDAS Toolbox Workgroup, so I hope that I can share some interesting information.
Thank you very much. And Sebastian?
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me well?
We can hear you.
Yep. Okay. So yes, thank you very much. My name is Sebastian Eltos, and I work as a senior architect at IDI, and I have the responsibility for standardization at this company. And my connection to the subject of the EU ID wallet is that I've been working more than 25 years in the PKI industry, mainly focusing on authentication, identification, and electronic signatures. And back in the 90s, I was working with smart card development back at a company called ID2 Technologies. And in that company, I was part of building up a couple of certification authorities in Austria, Finland, Germany, and Sweden. And currently, I'm involved in the EU DI wallet project and work with standardization organizations like ETSI, Fire Alliance, Hyperledger, W3C, and also with the EIDAS Expert Toolbox Group.
Thank you. So, thank you for these introductions. We can pass actually to the content of our panel. So, I would like to introduce a little bit the history of, what we will talk about. So, as you know, of course, the EIDAS regulation, so the regulation for electronic identities and trust services is with us already for a couple of years. And as it happens with every regulation issued by the European Union, it came the time to review it and to check what actually worked there well, what did not work. So, and of course, well, this is probably a subject for very long debate, what worked and what didn't work. But the general perception was that there is a need to update the statements of the regulation and to make certain things more precise, to add certain things because, well, the world did not stop but continued. And a year ago, around, the Commission has proposed a draft of the new regulation replacing the current EIDAS. So the working title of this is EIDAS version 2. And this regulation actually introduces many new concepts. And one of these concepts is the digital identity wallet. Now the regulation, the state of the regulation is that it is being discussed right now at the Council groups, so European Council, so among the member states who are discussing, let's say, on the shape of the regulation itself as proposed by the Commission. Then this will pass to the European Parliament. Actually, already some talks on this subject started. At the same time, the European Commission has established an EIDAS expert group that is divided into several working groups. And for example, Darius is participating actively in them. We also, as ENISA, we are involved, especially my colleague Evgenia that just spoke. And basically, this group has to somehow make precise, let's say, what is meant by certain statements, articles from the regulation. So one of the things that, one of the new components that is included in the EIDAS version 2 is the digital identity wallet. And there are huge discussions now, especially within, within both, within the Council group and within the EIDAS expert group on actually what this wallet will be. And my first question will be to Darius, actually, in simple words. How do you think how the proposed European mobile identity wallet will work? Is it fully designed? Is it, what is the current status of the shape of the wallet?
In simple words, it's of course still not fully designed and the work is in progress. However, we have already some products that will give a shape for a future solution. Of course, we have EIDAS regulation, but based on EIDAS regulation, the EIDAS Toolbox Workgroup is working on the documents that will provide some overview about the functionalities and non-functional requirements about the future solution. So what we have from EIDAS Toolbox Workgroup, we have architecture reference framework that is available, document available online, and it's outlining the scope of the wallet, functional requirements, non-functional requirements, and even some technological building blocks for future wallet. However, of course, it's not very detailed description, and I will give a quick overview of this document, how it looks like. So basically, we have functional requirements. First and the most important one is to store the documents in the wallet. In the IARF, it's called qualified or non-qualified electronic attestation of attributes, but it's easier to call them documents or credentials in business use cases. So basically you need to have a way to store them. Of course, store them securely and after authentication of the user, so it couldn't be anonymous wallet. Second thing that you can do with this wallet will be downloading the credential, downloading the documents from trusted sources like registries or attestation providers. When you have them in the wallet, you will be able to share them in a secure way. So there is some outline in the ARF about cryptographic functionalities of the wallet. and you will be able to share it offline and online. So in the real world, when you meet someone and you need to show that basically you are the guy that you are assumed to be, and in online world too, in every available service that needs authentication or passing the credentials. And connected with that, we have requirement about mutual authentication. So the basic assumption is to have a trustful framework that allows securely to pass data between the UDI wallet and between the service provider. It's worth mentioning that that the architecture is supposed to have qualified signatures too. So there will be a functionality to use qualified signatures to sign any data with qualified signatures. So it's more worth mentioning too. And of course, we have some non-functional requirements stated in this document. The most strict is about security. So the EUDI wallets will need to be at the security level high. Of course, they will need to be interoperable between European countries, and there are some requirements about ease of usage for every citizen, and for making making it clear when you pass the data, to whom you pass the data, and what kind of data. So that's basically the big picture assumptions about UDI wallet that are included in our ARF document. And we'll see in the next years when there will be some pilots launched, because there is assumption that in the following years we will have some projects that are conducted by the European countries. There is a tender organized by European Commission, and now countries are working to attend these pilots and to verify these assumptions in the real world.
Thank you, but well, how it will really look like for the end user, this wallet? How actually will we be able to use this wallet once it's established? Practically.
Okay, so
because in the EIDAS version 2, well, the concept of the wallet is presented as this will be a means of identification, and then specific attributes will be added. Let's say when you just add some well, functionalities to the wallet. But then for the end user, it's a mobile application. It's something.
Yeah, there is no strict assumption that it should be mobile application. So there is a way to make not only mobile application, but for example, web application too. So there is some, but basically what we are seeing now in a lot of countries, for example in Poland, it's based on mobile application because it's the easiest way to, and the most tangible way for people to feel the wallet, to feel that their data are at their site and they can securely use it.
Thank you. I will actually ask you about the Polish conception of the wallet afterwards, so this will not fly away. But now I would like to pass to Sebastian, actually, and I would like to ask you the question, like how this wallet will affect the popularity of trust services, according to you?
I believe that the trust services will be needed even more for the EUDI wallet. So in particular, there will be new trust services being defined. One is the electronic attribute attestation providers, and there are also the personal identification data providers. And both of them will be needed for issuing attested attributes to the wallet. And these attributes can come in different shapes and forms. It could be the ISO mobile driving license, or it could be W3C verifiable credentials that must be signed by trust service providers and added to the wallet. And the existing qualified trust service providers, like sealing services and certification authorities, They will also be needed in order for issuing traditional X509 certificates, but also for sealing the attested attributes with qualified seals and signatures that will be entered into the wallet. And furthermore, there will also be an increased need for remote identification service providers in order to identify the customer, know your customer, and also to meet the Anti-Money Laundering Act number 5 when onboarding users to the EU DI wallets.
Okay, thank you for this well statement. Kai, now I would like to turn to you and actually to follow up on what Darius said earlier. So, according to you, how do you think we make sure that the goals of the world are correctly outlined and achieved afterwards, and relevant trusts maintained?
That's a very good question, and actually I think one point is that we all actually as a community need to participate and need to take a very close look on what is happening. It's great that heroes like Darius are working on the specification, and I think a very good point in the proposed legislation is that it is actually ambitious. So it is, especially in the wallet chapter, pointing out a number of important requirements that so far had not been codified in any kind of law. And one element, I mentioned it in my introduction a bit, is already and to give the citizens the opportunity to choose precisely which elements of credentials they want to present and which they don't want to present. Let me explain that with an example from, let's say, normal real life that I get, for example, get reported from students in Frankfurt. We have a number of students in Frankfurt that are not only studying, but they're also going to clubs at night. I'm pretty sure it's the same in Warsaw also. And some of them are looking very young, and they need to prove that they're over 18. So what are they doing when to prove over 18? They show their identity card, ID card that they have. And in principle, the only thing in the ID card that they actually would need to show to the security bouncer at the end of the club would be the photo, so that the person can be identified. Really, is it the identity card of the person and the year of birth, and maybe when somebody is just over 18 and the date of birth. And that's everything that the bouncer actually needs to know. What nowadays with a normal ID card, when you show it to a club, at least when it's a German ID card, is also your current address, which is useful for other purposes. But what we see, and some students see in Frankfurt then, is then the security person looks at the ID card, front page, back page, especially when the club entrant is a very attractive person, then sometimes the person gets a visit later by the bouncer because, well, attractive person, I'd like to visit her, so I see the address and I come with some flowers. Sometimes that is nice when you get visited with flowers, sometimes it's actually not what you would like to have because maybe you didn't want to be visited by the person. What is the privacy issue with it? It is, and the credential, again, that was needed would have been over 18, and yes, this is the authentic, really person. Where the person lives is of no interest and has been of no interest to the bouncer at the entrance of the club. And that's what we call over-identification, and you can have that in several scenarios, and you have it with several and credentials also because they're usually signed by signature and all put together. Better credentials can basically say, okay, I have a credential, but I show only certain elements. Still, the authentication of the credential is given. So that goal needs to be fulfilled. And that is something that we need to make sure that the respective specification elements are coming in because the respective technology is a bit more ambitious, is more expensive, may take more time to develop. The other element fits to what Slavek just explained. What is the wallet actually? And many people with a wallet think, of course, this, more or less, maybe in a more colorful or nicer fashion, but standing on its own, I use it wherever I am. In most cases, the wallet and architect elements that I think are really implemented at the moment are a smartphone, but not on its own, and a smartphone that is basically connected to a cloud service. So it only works actually when it is networked, and the security of the cloud service that is related to it is an essential for the security of the whole ecosystem. So and the reason for that is that very often smartphones nowadays don't have the functionality to store things properly. Actually, some of them have. You can try to do something with NFC, but clearly it's not trivial. So what we need to make sure together so that we achieve the goal is that we don't have a scenario in the end where the people say, and from the smartphone say, well, our smartphone is not perfect, but everything will be secure in the cloud, everything will be fine. And the people from the cloud side will say, well, maybe some of our stuff is not perfect, but everything will be secured by the security in the smartphone. So we need to make sure that the whole ecosystem, everything fitting together, actually has that level of security that we want to have, because with that ambition, we're building a great bridge to the digital promised land, as I think it was said in the introduction, but we need to make sure that this bridge is actually stable and we're not falling down with it. So that, I think, is the goal. And we need all of you, everybody actually, to look into this in terms of trialing, testing. Any ambitious technology in the first times is not going perfect. I don't know whether you saw what was happening in Germany just before the elections last year. There was a minister coming up and said, I have the perfect wallet for digital driving licenses. And he had done that after a 6 weeks development of a small prototype and then wanted to present it just a week before the election to get re-elected. And 1 week after the elections, the whole thing faltered. And he didn't get re-elected from that point of view, fair enough. But we need to make sure that we don't have these kind of scenarios. We need to have something solid.
But you actually showed, well, a moment ago, well, your wallet. And in this wallet, probably you have a lot of different cards, maybe your diploma even. And then on each of these cards, you have different photo, different pictures. You might have also different address because you might have changed it in the meantime and did not change the documents. And also it provides somehow, I mean, if you take a physical card, there's your photo, there's a lot of other data. So actually, how do you think it is possible, well, to achieve the situation where someone that is letting you to the bar knows only your age, or for example, if you rent a car, that the person that is renting you the car knows that you have a specific driving license permission, and basically that you don't have any, let's say, problems with driving.
Well, the simple solution, of course, is for every kind of application case that I possibly have, I maybe have a different certificate and a car. For example, this is my university entrance card, and it has a photo of me, it has my name and my title and my university employee number. It doesn't have my private address because it is not really needed for this purpose. And of course, then I have a lot of those, and of course, that's why this wallet is maybe too thick and too fat and too heavy. So what would be great, and we have technology for that, of course, is that one can have certificates that have quite a few properties, and then I could take this and maybe cover certain things that are not needed. For example, this also allows me to travel in public transport in Frankfurt. But for that, they only need to know that I'm at Frankfurt University and my photos. They don't need to see my exact employee number. At the moment, I need to do something like this. Electronically, covering would mean, yes, choose this and this attribute I would like to show, and from this in the certificate. Of course, what is also important, and I think that Darius is taking care of that, I'm sure, is that indeed certificates from different issuers are coming out. This is coming from a university. There's something coming from Frankfurt municipality. There is something coming from a credit card company. It would not be a good idea to say all of my attributes that I have in here would have to be issued from the same organization. That would be a privacy disaster. So multi-issuer functionality for attributes is an essential element, for example. Does it make sense for you?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was actually wondering if I may ask something similar to Sebastian as a provider of solutions for identity proofing. So if you somehow second Kai's statements.
Yes, of course. I believe the selective disclosure is one of the most important aspects of them all as regards to the upcoming EU ID wallet. And there are a lot of interesting cryptographic schemes coming up, and also as regards to the ISO mobile driving license, there are existing solutions that are deployed, for example, in United States, in a couple of states over there. So this is important, and there will be technical solutions for them. As regards to identity proofing, ENISA has issued 2 reports, as you mentioned before, 2 great reports. Thank you for that, by the way. And in these reports, you go into depth how to properly remotely identify a person prior to onboarding the person with the proper attributes and certificates. And that was also evident during the Corona pandemic, that this is of great importance to manage.
Thanks. So now I would like to come back to Darius again and to dig a little bit about the wallet itself. So how do you see, what are, according to you, the challenges for making working solutions interoperable within, according to the EIDAS 2 proposal?
So we have a few fields of the challenges. First is regulational challenges, and I assume that it will be solved by EIDAS regulation. So let me focus on on more technical details. Mm-hmm. So first thing that it will be, I think, hard to achieve in a broad way is this high level of security, to make it possible that in every country we have a wallet that is on the security level high, not lower. So that's the first challenge, and we need to then definitely work on that to provide from the wallet solutions the technologies that will allow to certify it on the high level. I'm not saying that we don't have such technologies, but we just need to make a lot of tests. The tests should be repeated every year, for example, because we live in mobile application world. We live in very heterogeneous environment. Every year is something new. Every year we have new threats. So it's definitely not one-time experience to make it on the high-level assurance. Second difficulty, which is currently discussed, is matching the problem that Kai mentioned. We have a few documents and even from a few different countries, and how to match them. I think that it was the problem, it's still the problem after the first EIDAS, that you can't use your national ID in every country the same way as you can do it in Europe. So that will be the challenge, how to match it, because in some countries there is no need to have personal ID, persistent personal ID. So there will be probably some solutions to make it possible to join the documents and to assume that they are from one person. The one more problem that we encountered, maybe not in Poland, but in other countries, there is a need to have central registries sometimes for attestation providers. I don't think about government only, but as Kai mentioned, every service provider should have registry for the attributes, and it's not the way that it's done in some cases. And technically, mutual authentication, as I mentioned, which is stated in ARF, will be hard to achieve in a broad way. In our solution, we have all the trust framework for companies that want to be a third party in the ecosystem. But I see that it's organizationally a big challenge to manage it, and between all the EU countries it would be even harder. So I think that will be the tough work to do it interoperably. And last but not least, as I already mentioned, we work with mobile devices. So we need to look, of course, at the two big players, Android and by Google, and iOS by Apple. And we have a lot of mobile phone vendors that are doing some things differently, especially considering security. So there is a lot of challenges in just technological field and making the solution interoperable between devices.
You mentioned the central registries in your answer, and then I have a question. Well, like I would like to follow up on this. Like, what to do, for example, in the situation where, in some countries, in some member states, there's a strict interdiction of having, for example, the persistent identity numbers, which actually, well, would be the base probably of the wallet if.
Yeah, so there are a few ideas how to solve it. This the so-called personal ID, PID matching. There are some ideas to provide maybe universal API from all the countries that I have some data and I can ask about the person, but of course it's a danger that it won't be unique. So it's still not resolved, it's still discussed, and it's one of the hardest problem, I think.
Huge problem. Thank you. So actually, I would like to ask something similar to Sebastian. Like, what about this interoperability of the wallets within the EU from your point of view?
Yes, so far the EIDAS interoperability has been based on the so-called EIDAS nodes, and they connect over a federation protocol, which is called SAML version 2. However, this was one of the issues that were identified when the EU Commission made the review of the EIDAS regulation from 2014. And they realized that this hasn't really got the effect it was expected. It was only about 50,000 transactions per year. So this is one of the key objectives for the EU DI wallet, and that is interoperability and in particular cross-border. So for EIDAS 2, there are a different number of interoperability protocols that could be in scope for the EU DI wallet. And one option is, of course, the ISO MDL standard, which already specify an offline exchange protocol, and they use the OpenID Connect protocol for online authentication. And the OpenID Foundation, they have taken this one step further, and they have identified and specified 3 new standards for OpenID Connect for verifiable credentials that can be of great use for the wallet. And in addition to both OpenID Connect and SAML, there are a couple of interesting protocols specified by Hyperledger and the Digital Identity Foundation for DIDCOM, for example. But ultimately, at the end of the day, all of this will be defined by the ARF, the Architecture Reference Framework, that will define interoperability.
Thank you. Next question, again, I would like to come back to Dalius. So what can we learn actually already from the wallets that are already operational in the EU? So we have the wallet, we have the Polish wallet that I know well. There are others that I have seen, and basically, well, you are one of the providers of experience in this field to the working groups. And if you can share with us what you think are the main, say, subjects that came out within your work on the Polish wallet, and what do you know about other wallets as well?
So of course we already have a few solutions that are working in Europe, and not only in Europe. It's a different situation than 5 years ago when we started. There were no any standard about mobile driving license. We need to figure out a lot of things, and now it's easier. However, because we started, and let me focus firstly on our Polish solution. When we started 5 years ago, it was a new thing, and we were afraid how it will develop. Will people understand it? We had some pilots about how it should work, even if it should be mobile application or not. And nowadays, mCitizen has around 8 million users, more than 5 million active users. It's measured that they used the application for the recent 30 days. So it's a complete wallet solution. I call it self-sovereign ID based on PKI. So we don't use blockchain. It's based on PKI standards that are available for a long time. And currently it contains more than 10 documents. We started with mobile ID. Next we had mobile driving license, vehicle registration documents, insurance documents, penalty points counter. Some of these documents are offline, so going back to what Kai mentioned, we have some offline documents too, but some of them are online. For example, prescriptions work online. And mobile ID and driving license, when you take it, you have it on your phone. Of course, we have PKI behind it, so whenever it's revoked, you can check it. Moreover, we have family card and, of course, COVID certificate that boosted every wallet solution. And we see in every country that had such a solution, the growth was like threefold in the users. So what are the experiences? We talked about a problem with a bodyguard. So when you have your document, and with traditional one you need to show it for the bodyguard, so that he can see not only the photo and your age, but he sees lots of data not necessary for him. And for example, in COVID certificate, we solved it this way, that we took a photo from mobile ID and applied it to the QR code, and other data is just hidden. So whenever you have a wallet and authenticated document, you can mix the data. And it's one of the assumptions stated in the ARF too, that you can combine the data and make them make maybe not different documents, but present to the third parties. For example, it is helpful when there is automatic electronic forms, when for example, signing assurance agreements, there is a lot of data to input, so you can take them from the wallet and pass it through, of course, securely to the service provider. So that's one lesson learned, that you can take data and mix them and create something totally new that you were not hoping to be useful. And in this bodyguard case, you can of course take and make photo and your age, and it could work offline and online. Moreover, I would like to mention that it's good not to take too many challenges at the beginning. It's easier to make small steps, but in one direction, because we tend to overestimate what we can do in short term, but we tend to underestimate what we can do in longer term, for example, in 3-5 years. So that's the key point, to take small steps, small increments. It's a more secure way. You can check some things, make security tests. It's easier, because of course you will have security challenges definitely. And mentioning other solution, we were very surprised that Ukraine has such a sophisticated wallet. It's called DIA application, and they have, I think, that more than 10 million users, more than 10 documents in the wallet. So they are completely ready to contribute to our solution, to EIDAS regulations and into technical solutions. They've done a little bit differently than us, the data sharing, more in an online way, but definitely it will be easy to make it interoperable. Some other countries has wallet solutions, Norway, Portugal. This year, I think that Austria will launch a mobile driving license. The Netherlands are conducting a pilot, and they are basing on the ISO standards. So we definitely need to look how they've done it and take some lessons. And considering not only in European countries, definitely we need to look, and we had some meetings with Apple about their mobile driving license in Arizona. I think they are conducting pilot. And the point to take is that they don't have a visual layer of this document when verifying. They base only on NFC and on some devices. So it's definitely thing that we need to watch. And we can mention Australian mobile wallet too, because it was they had some security issues, maybe not so severe, but we need to see that maybe some securing data with only PIN, it's not too secure.
Okay, so you mentioned well, a lot of very interesting matters. I would like to come back just to one of them. Like, do you think that the existing solutions that are already in the EU can serve as the base for the future wallet, or everything will have to be reinvented from scratch somehow?
I think that it won't be possible to make it from scratch. When you have, like, 8 million, 10 million users, they have some preference already about how it should work. So it should be adjusted in small steps, but definitely there is a lot of work to do to make it interoperable.
Basically, you hope that, well, there will be a possibility of, let's say, adapting the existing solutions to the new framework then.
It would be too dangerous to, like throw the existing solutions and start with a totally new one.
From zero. Thank you. Kai, now a question to you. Because as we all know, EIDAS is a part of, well, the broader EU legislation. So this belongs actually to the family even of cybersecurity legislation, I would say, that were not existing for many years, but since then we have NIS directive, we had EIDAS, we had GDPR that somehow relates to cybersecurity as well. Now AI Act that is in preparation. And actually, according to you, what is the relation of the wallet to other European legislation? The ones that I mentioned and also maybe others.
There is, yes, there is, I think, a lot of relation also to this digital strategic autonomy or digital sovereignty approach that you find behind quite a bit of that regulation, also including the NIS regulation. And I see two elements when it comes to the implementation of the wallet or to the secure element of the wallet, which we need to look in parallel to. The one thing is actually ENISA is involved with that, of course. We need to have a scrutiny of the platforms that we're using and the certification activities that, for example, ENISA is looking after in implementation of the NIS directive are very relevant for the wallet also. We have a number of layers of technology, including the, let's say, hardware platform and the operating system platforms that are being used, that we need to understand very precisely how good they are and how good they are not, because they have weaknesses. We know that, and we need to document very precisely and what those weaknesses are and whether they have an impact or what kind of impact they would have on the functionality. At the same time, and we cannot do everything from scratch at this moment in time, but we have to overcome a number of weaknesses at least over time. And one element, of course, is actually the operating systems of smartphones, of the platforms that we have at the moment. We have actually European research on more secure smartphones than what you have at the moment in the market. But again, that research and that development is fragmented. You have small companies in Finland who are still coming from that Nokia secure thing that you have. You have a company like Morena who is going after an Android open source operating system thing, but without having all of the hyperscaler Google services in it, so making it less complex. These approaches need to be integrated over time to have a more secure platform, and that is also something that definitely needs support from legislation, because it's not coming for free. It's not something the market will do on its own. On the other side, we have some European legislation actually, and as a professor I'm always giving homework, of course, legislation where we need to be careful that it doesn't kill all of these nice approaches. And one of the more recent legislations that we need to be very careful about is it actually comes under the innocent and maybe unobtrusive flag of child protection. Child protection is very important. But when you look at the most recent proposal that the Commission has made, or the DG Home has made under the headline of child protection, or detecting child and endangering material, it actually contains a number of provisions which say implementation of child protection should be by enabling spying into the mobile phone. Spying is my interpretation, but basically looking into the mobile phone. And there are two ways, not specified very precisely, but we need to take a very close look. Two ways. One way is to say, well, let's install, like Apple did it with the OS 1501 and trial implementation, and scanning function on the mobile phone that is scanning for certain patterns on the mobile phone, and these patterns are there. Patterns could be, for example, child pornography or something like that, then a central report is coming. You may remember the shitstorm that Apple harvested after they made that trial, because basically this kind of spying functionality could today look for certain pictures, tomorrow it can look for messages on whatever governments don't like, and the next day it can look after any kind of message, because it's just a scanning functionality that is weakening the operating system of the phone. The other thing is breaking encryption. That is another idea that is put up there, like enabling a functionality that can break encryption for confidentiality, to and find chat messages or something like that. Once you have that of course, quite a bit of all of the signature and functionality is endangered. So we need to make sure that we not on the one side build secure wallets and on the other side build tools that are breaking these secure wallets at the same time and endangering the infrastructure that we're just trying to build. And the Commission is now moving forward with digitalization in many areas at the same time, but I would say from a serious point of view, from a solid engineering point of view, we need to make sure that not certain goals are promised to politicians that cannot be fulfilled at the same time. If we want to have a secure infrastructure, it needs to be a secure infrastructure, and otherwise we should not tell people it's a secure infrastructure. So my point is here, and take a look, and if somebody wants to look into whatever endangerous materials, they should look into the public materials and not try to break encryption. That will kill the whole endeavor that we're going for.
Okay, so basically there's clear link between, well, wallet and potential legislation in, that relates to the wallet itself. You mentioned also during your speech, well, standards and certification. Are we already there with standards related to wallet and potential certification activities?
Well, we have a number of standards, but I don't think we have them all fully implemented yet. There is some more work to be done. I mean, we have evaluation and certification standards since the common criteria for a long time. So if you talk to industry, they will say that takes too long, that is too heavy, that is not dealing with agile software development. And I don't think we yet have a full set of standards that they fit a simple wallet. I mean, Dario said we should start with a simple example at the beginning because a simple, clear architecture is also easier to certify and to agree on, let's say, that first step, simple architecture. So let's say we certify that, which is a multi-tiered easier than certifying something more complex. That is still ahead of us. Okay. So there is work to be done, clearly. We can do it. Nothing of that is rocket science on that level that Darius describes.
Probably this would be a good subject for the whole panel, not for one question. We have exactly 3 minutes left, so my last questions will be to Sebastian. I would actually like you to summarize somehow the discussions that we had. According to you, what is the potential of the wallet, both with regard to citizens and digital strategic autonomy, according to you?
Yeah, I would say that the EU ID wallet has an enormous potential to be used for digital identification on a large scale. And I believe in a couple of years from now, we can envision hundreds of millions of users that use the EU ID wallet on a daily basis for payments, identification with mobile driving license, passports, vaccination certificates, university diplomas, and so forth. And one important step in this direction is that the EU Commission has issued a tender for large-scale pilots. And they identify the most important use cases to be precisely those: the mobile driving license, payments, e-health, and education. And as regards to payments, the digital euro could also play a role in this case, which would be, of course, extremely exciting and interesting for the future to come.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to this summary?
Well, I would say we should be prepared that more work is needed and more money is needed. For example, there's this tender. It's good that this tender exists. If you look into the legislation and see the corresponding amount of euros that is coming to it, I would say that is not sufficient, clearly not sufficient. I'd like to draw the comparison to Galileo. And Galileo started with a small amount of money. We said we want strategically to be independent from GPS. We want to have a satellite system that under European control can do things. And we started off with a small amount of money because that was the only thing that was politically possible. And then later, over 20 years, the price got up and up and up. And you can say that was a scandal. I would say that was a wise decision to invest, because latest, when we had President Trump thinking about switching off GPS, we were so happy that in Europe we had Galileo. So we should see the wallet and this whole infrastructure as a similar strategic project. We start off with something small, but we should be prepared that it will require more investment. I think the investment, if we do it properly, if we fulfill the quality criteria, is a good investment, and it will help us and will look much better in 15 years. We will look a bit better in 2 years, but this is a long-term thing, and we should be prepared for that.
Darius?
From my point of view, the potential is huge. And just to mention one thing, that whenever we have the wallet, working wallet, mobile application, we can use all the nice features available on these devices and connect it with wallet. For example, geolocalization, for example, voice assistance, and everything that is new. So to make it even more personalized device to help citizens use government and not only government services.
Thank you very much. Our time actually just finished, so I would like to thank you, you, the panelists specifically, for all the knowledge that you just passed us. I mean, there's a lot of work still on the wallet to be done. A lot of evolvements are happening at this very moment. Thank you all for participation in this panel.